Have you ever found yourself completely blindsided by a woman's emotional reactions? That moment when everything seemed perfect, and suddenly, without warning, her entire demeanor changed. The confusion you felt wasn't just about miscommunication. It was about something far deeper, something that operates beneath the surface of conscious awareness. Today, you're about to discover the hidden archetypal forces Carl Jung uncovered that silently drive women's deepest emotional behaviors. These powerful psychological patterns have been influencing your relationships from the shadows, and understanding them could be the key that finally unlocks the mysteries you've been struggling to solve. The pain of not understanding these patterns is real. You've felt it every time you've been rejected without explanation. Every time you've been left wondering what you did wrong. Every time you've seen a relationship deteriorate despite your best efforts. That feeling of helplessness when faced with emotional responses that seem completely disconnected from reality. It's not just frustrating, it's emotionally devastating. Men who remain ignorant of these Jungian patterns are doomed to repeat the same painful cycles. They continue investing emotionally in relationships that follow predictable patterns of deterioration. They continue being blindsided by seemingly irrational emotional shifts. They continue feeling powerless in the face of psychological dynamics they don't understand. But what if you could see behind the curtain? What if you could recognize these patterns before they manifest, understand their origins, and navigate them with confidence and clarity? The solution lies in understanding the archetypal forces that Jung identified within the female psyche, the unconscious patterns that have been shaping human relationships since the dawn of civilization. By the end of this exploration, you'll have a profound understanding of the shadow aspects of female psychology that Jung warned about. You'll recognize the manifestations of these archetypal energies in your daily interactions. And most importantly, you'll possess the knowledge to transform your relationships through this deeper understanding of the feminine unconscious. Before we dive into specific patterns, you need to understand how Jung viewed the human psyche, particularly the feminine aspect. Unlike Freud, who reduced much of human behavior to sexual drives, Jung recognized that our psyches are shaped by universal archetypal energies that transcend individual experience. Jung believed that the female psyche, like the male, contains both conscious and unconscious elements. The conscious mind is what a woman presents to the world and to herself. But beneath this conscious awareness lies the vast territory of the unconscious, both personal and collective. The personal unconscious contains forgotten experiences, repressed emotions, and neglected aspects of personality. The collective unconscious, however, is where you'll find the archetypal patterns we're discussing today, ancient, universal templates of experience that have shaped human psychology throughout history. For Jung, understanding a woman's behavior meant understanding how these archetypal energies express themselves through her unique personality and experiences. When these energies remain unconscious, they control behavior from the shadows. When they're brought into consciousness, they can be integrated and expressed in healthier ways. The shadow feminine, the rejected self. The shadow is perhaps Jung's most misunderstood concept, yet it's crucial for understanding female psychological patterns. Every woman carries a shadow, the repository of qualities she has rejected from her conscious identity. These aren't necessarily negative qualities. They're simply aspects of herself that she has learned are unacceptable, dangerous, or contrary to her self-image. You've witnessed the shadow feminine when a normally kind, nurturing woman suddenly becomes rageful or vindictive. You've seen it when a typically confident, independent woman becomes clingy and insecure. These aren't personality changes, they're shadow eruptions. When a woman hasn't acknowledged her shadow aspects, they don't disappear. Instead, they operate autonomously, emerging in moments of stress, vulnerability, or triggering. This is why you might experience a woman projecting onto you qualities that don't seem to fit. She's actually seeing her own disowned shadow reflected back at her. The shadow feminine often contains rage and aggression that conflict with societal expectations of female nurturing, sexual desires that contradict messages about female purity, selfishness that challenges the expectation of female self-sacrifice, ambition and power-seeking that oppose traditional feminine submission. when you're in a relationship with a woman who hasn't integrated these shadow elements, you become the unwitting recipient of her projections. Her unacknowledged rage becomes your anger problem. Her disowned sexuality becomes your excessive desire. Her unexpressed selfishness becomes your insensitivity. Understanding this dynamic allows you to recognize when you're being used as a screen for shadow projections. Instead of reacting defensively, you can maintain your emotional center and even help create space for these shadow elements to be acknowledged and integrated. The animus, the inner masculine. One of Jung's most illuminating concepts for understanding female psychology is the animus, the masculine aspect within the female psyche. Just as men carry an inner feminine, the anima, women carry an inner masculine that profoundly influences their relationships with actual men. The animus forms initially through a woman's relationship with her father and other significant male figures, then continues developing through her interactions with men throughout life. This inner masculine isn't just an image, it's an autonomous complex that shapes how she perceives, evaluates, and relates to men. When a woman has a poorly developed or negative animus, you'll notice specific patterns. She may be hypercritical, with an inner voice that constantly judges both herself and others. She might be attracted to men who embody her unconscious animus qualities, even when those qualities are destructive. She could struggle with assertiveness, either being unable to stand up for herself or overcompensating with aggressive behavior. She may unconsciously sabotage relationships with men who don't match her animus projection. You've likely experienced the confusion of being idealized by a woman early in a relationship, only to be devalued later. This is classic animus projection. Initially, she projects her positive animus qualities onto you, seeing you as her inner ideal. But as the relationship develops, and you inevitably fail to embody this projection perfectly, the negative animus takes over, and she begins to see you through its critical lens. Understanding the animus allows you to recognize when a woman is relating to her inner masculine, rather than to you as an individual. This awareness can help you avoid taking her projections personally, while encouraging a more authentic connection. The mother archetype. Nurturing and devouring. The mother is perhaps the most powerful archetype in the female psyche. Jung recognized that this primal energy exists in all women, regardless of whether they have children. The mother archetype contains both positive qualities, nurturing, protection, wisdom, and negative aspects, control, engulfment, dependency. You'll encounter the mother archetype in various forms: the nurturing mother who provides care, comfort, and emotional support; the terrible mother who controls, manipulates, and smothers autonomy; the absent mother who is emotionally unavailable or abandoning. When a woman hasn't consciously integrated her mother archetype, it operates autonomously, creating patterns that can profoundly affect her relationships. She might swing between smothering care and cold withdrawal. She might try to mother you rather than relate as an equal partner. She might unconsciously recreate dynamics from her own maternal relationship. You felt the mother archetype's influence when a woman's nurturing suddenly feels suffocating. You've experienced it when her care comes with invisible strings of obligation. You've witnessed it when she treats you as a child rather than an adult partner. Understanding the mother archetype helps you recognize when a woman is operating from this primal energy rather than relating to you authentically. This awareness allows you to maintain appropriate boundaries while honoring the positive aspects of her nurturing nature. The maiden core, innocence and vulnerability. The maiden or core, Greek for maiden, represents feminine innocence, vulnerability, and potential. This archetypal energy embodies the youthful feminine before full maturation, receptive, full of possibility, but also naive and susceptible to influence. In women of any age, the maiden archetype manifests as an openness to experience and willingness to be led, a quality of freshness and spontaneity in approaching life, vulnerability that can either invite protection or exploitation, a seeking for guidance and initiation from others. When this archetype dominates unconsciously, you'll notice a woman who seems perpetually girlish, who struggles with taking full responsibility, or who constantly seeks validation and direction from others. She may appear refreshingly spontaneous and open, But this same quality can manifest as emotional instability and lack of boundaries. You've encountered the maiden archetype when a woman's vulnerability has awakened your protective instincts. You've experienced its shadow when her need for validation becomes an insatiable void that no amount of reassurance can fill. Understanding the maiden archetype helps you recognize when a woman is operating from this youthful energy and when she may need support in developing more mature aspects of her feminine nature. The Amazon warrior, independence and strength. The Amazon or warrior archetype represents feminine strength, independence, and self-sufficiency. This energy stands in contrast to more traditional feminine archetypes, embodying qualities of courage, assertiveness, and autonomy. When the Amazon archetype is active in a woman, you'll notice strong boundaries and clear self-definition, comfort with competition and achievement, independence that may resist vulnerability or interdependence, direct communication, and action-oriented approaches. When this archetype operates unconsciously, it can manifest as an excessive need for independence that prevents genuine intimacy. A woman dominated by the unintegrated Amazon may struggle with vulnerability, resist emotional connection, or compete rather than collaborate in relationships. You've witnessed the Amazon archetype when a woman's strength and independence have inspired your respect. You've experienced its shadow when her resistance to vulnerability has created emotional distance, or when her self-sufficiency has left no space for your contribution. Understanding the Amazon archetype helps you honor a woman's need for autonomy, while creating space for the vulnerable connection that deepens relationships. Now we arrive at the most profound revelation about female psychological patterns, the one that Jung recognized but that remains largely unacknowledged in our discussions of relationships. This insight has the power to transform your understanding of female behavior and your approach to relationships. The revelation is this: these archetypal energies don't just influence female behavior, they can completely possess a woman's conscious personality when they remain unintegrated and unconscious. Jung called this phenomenon identification with the archetype, and it explains the dramatic personality shifts you've witnessed in women that have left you confused and disoriented. When a woman becomes identified with an archetypal energy, she isn't simply expressing that energy, she becomes it, often with no awareness that a shift has occurred. This explains why the loving, supportive partner you knew yesterday can transform into a cold, critical stranger today. It's not that she's being deceptive or manipulative. It's that different archetypal energies have taken command of her conscious personality. The deeply troubling aspect of this dynamic is that when it occurs, a woman often has no recognition that anything has changed. From her perspective, her feelings and perceptions in the moment are reality. The nurturing mother who cared for you deeply yesterday doesn't recognize herself as the same person as the critical animus-possessed woman who finds fault with everything you do today. This is why logical discussions, appeals to consistency, or reminders of previous feelings often fail completely. You're not speaking to the same psychological configuration. The woman who loved you deeply is temporarily not home. Her consciousness has been possessed by an archetypal energy that operates according to its own agenda. This explains the maddening experience of trying to reconcile contradictory behaviors from the same woman. It clarifies why promises made in one state may be completely forgotten or denied in another. It illuminates why the emotional connection that felt unshakable can suddenly vanish without explanation. The impact of this reality on your emotional life has been profound. You've questioned your perception of reality when faced with these dramatic shifts. You've blamed yourself for changes in her feelings that had nothing to do with your actions. You've exhausted yourself trying to navigate relationships with women whose archetypal identifications create unpredictable emotional terrain. But here's the transformative insight. When you can recognize archetypal possession for what it is, you gain a profound advantage. Instead of being pulled into the emotional chaos, you can maintain your center. Instead of taking these shifts personally, you can recognize the archetypal energy at work. Instead of fighting against these forces, you can learn to navigate them skillfully. The man who understands these Jungian patterns stops being a victim of unconscious feminine archetypal energies and becomes a conscious participant in the dance of relationship. He develops the ability to recognize when he's dealing with the nurturing mother, the critical animus, the vulnerable maiden, or the independent Amazon, and he adjusts his approach accordingly. This is not about manipulation. It's about profound understanding that leads to compassion rather than confusion. It's about recognizing the archetypal forces at play in the female psyche and responding to them with awareness rather than reactivity. Jung's shocking advice was clear. Never ignore these patterns, because ignorance leaves you at their mercy. Awareness transforms you from a helpless recipient of unconscious projections into a conscious navigator of archetypal energies. Now that you've glimpsed the profound depths of Jung's insights into female psychological patterns, how will you approach your relationships differently? This knowledge isn't merely theoretical, it's intensely practical, offering you a new lens through which to view every interaction with the women in your life. Consider how your past relationships might have followed different paths had you understood these archetypal energies. Think about the confusing behaviors that now make sense within this framework. Imagine future relationships where you can navigate these patterns with confidence rather than confusion. The integration of this knowledge requires more than intellectual understanding. It demands a willingness to see beyond surface behaviors to the archetypal energies that drive them. It asks you to respond to the deeper reality rather than just reacting to the momentary manifestation. When you recognize a woman's critical animus emerging, you can choose not to engage with the criticism, but instead speak to the vulnerability that often lies beneath it. When you notice the devouring mother's control, you can establish boundaries while honoring her need for connection. When you witness the maiden's dependency, you can offer guidance while encouraging growth. This perspective doesn't just transform your relationships with women, it transforms your relationship with yourself. As you learn to recognize these archetypal energies in others, you'll begin to notice your own archetypal identifications and how they influence your behaviors and choices. The journey of understanding Jung's insights into female psychology is ultimately a journey toward greater consciousness, both of the women in your life and of yourself. It's a path that leads to more authentic connection, more effective communication, and more fulfilling relationships. How has this exploration changed your understanding of the women in your life? What patterns do you now recognize that were previously confusing? Share your experiences in the comments below. Your journey of discovery might help others who are struggling to navigate these same archetypal waters. If this exploration has illuminated something for you, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. We're continuing to explore Jung's profound insights in our ongoing series, and you won't want to miss our previous videos on masculine psychology, dream interpretation, and the journey toward individuation. Remember, in Jung's own words, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Today, you've taken a significant step toward consciousness. The archetypal patterns that once controlled your relationships from the shadows can now be recognized, understood, and navigated with awareness. This knowledge doesn't promise perfect relationships. Nothing can. But it offers something perhaps more valuable, the ability to engage with the full complexity of feminine psychology without being overwhelmed by it. It provides a map for territory that previously seemed chaotic and unpredictable. As you move forward, carry this awareness with you. Notice the archetypal energies at play in your interactions. Respond to the deeper reality rather than just the surface behavior. And most importantly, approach this knowledge not as a tool for control but as a path toward more profound understanding and authentic connection. The mystery of feminine psychology never disappears completely, nor should it. But with Jung's insights as your guide, that mystery transforms from a source of confusion and pain into an invitation for deeper exploration and discovery. What revelations have you experienced in your relationships with women that connect to these Jungian patterns? I'm curious to hear your stories in the comments below. And if you found value in today's exploration, make sure to share it with others who might benefit from this perspective. Until next time, remember that the most powerful force in any relationship is consciousness, the awareness that transforms unconscious patterns into conscious choices.